Welcome to the Dom.Hockey Podcast, proudly presented by Bench Rates. Created by a former hockey player, Bench Rates uses a proprietary algorithm to assign a true monetary value to a player's on-ice contributions and lets you compare that value directly to his cap hit. Bench Rates evaluates professional players across leagues worldwide, including the NHL and AHL. Learn more at benchrates.com. Also presented by McKeen's Hockey. McKeen's produces the premier NHL draft guide featuring more than 200 player reports and comprehensive rankings. They also deliver in-depth prospect coverage through their annual team-by-team rankings and their trusted hockey pool yearbook. Visit mckeens.com and subscribe for just $16.50 Canadian for 3 months. Happy Saturday morning to everybody out there. Thanks for tuning in. It is another episode of Dom.Hockey the Podcast. And with me, as always, is the one and only Mr. Dominic Tiano himself. Dom, how you doing this weekend?
I'm doing great. It's my grandson's birthday, and I'm here talking to you. What couldn't be better, right?
Well, happy birthday to your grandson from all of us, I'm sure. But, you know, around here, we like to dive right in. So without further ado,
Yep.
I want to touch on the topics that you pushed out there. Let's start with this Leo Carlsson offer sheet and how that's, because in my mind, I think that's completely changed how the rosters are going to be built going forward in some ways. What do you think?
I think there's going to have to be a lot of getting used to this new cap world that we're in. I don't think most people fully grasp it. Don't fully grasp it. You know how much time I invest in the cap. Um, I've talked about it before. The cap this year is artificially low. It should be at what the 27-28 cap is at. And that should be up to 125 million. We also have a new US TV deal coming up. And they're talking about adding a third party to it, which is just going to drive things up even further. So while $18 million may look astounding right now, it's not before this contract is up. In fact, it probably won't be in 2 years. So what's really surprising to me about Anaheim matching is this. And I must say that the NHL and NHLPA has attempted to fix this. Like if this contract was signed September 16th, it would not be allowed under the new upcoming rules. And that's the bonus structure. Anaheim is the fourth lowest revenue generating team in the NHL. Last year, they pulled in roughly $185 million, which is a heck of a lot when you consider that they're carrying over $200 million in debt. And yeah, the owner has deep, deep pockets, but the Ducks
Some of the
still are
deepest
a
in the
business,
league.
and they have. Yeah, the Ducks are still a business, and they, whether you're a multi-billionaire or not, you don't want to operate at a loss. And the fact that they're dishing out $20 million in signing bonuses right now when they've got no revenue coming in. If you look at the way the contract is structured, he's making league minimum every year for the 5 years this deal is for. The rest is all in signing bonuses. So that's going to affect how they structure contracts going forward. If you look at Mint, what's his name?
Pavel Mintyukov?
He just signed. I can never say that name. He's got signing bonuses in year one of his deal and nothing else after that. So they've got Cutter Gauthier coming up. How are they going to structure that deal? So Philly did the best they could to put him between a rock and a hard place.
They really did. I mean, I look at it and I think that's the genius of what Daniel Briere did with this offer sheet. But to your point, if they had done this in September, just after the mid-September point, this contract wouldn't even be signable based on that bonus structure. So my question to
Right.
you is, do you think that bonus structure, because we've seen it countless times. If I'm not mistaken, like Austin Matthews is making $1 million a year and everything else is assigned. Like we've seen Toronto do that structure countless times. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we talked about it a lot when Jeremy Swayman was up for his contract because he wanted a contract that couldn't be bought out, with expansion and then obviously COVID coming out of that. Like people wanted contracts that couldn't be bought out, that were guaranteeing the money. So we've had extensive conversations on that. And now that's changing. And I know it's a certain percentage every year. You might know it off the top of your head. Is that something you know off the top of your head, how it's going to change to?
September, it's going down to 60%, which I wish they would have gone further, but at least 60% is a start. So it doesn't work on the AAV, it works on the total value. So if a player is signing a contract that's worth $100 million, uh, the maximum signing bonuses could only be 60 million. Whereas right now it could be, uh, let's say it's a 5-year deal, 95 million could be in signing bonuses.
Yeah, it's literally 95%. So now with the way that
Yeah,
that bonus structure, that 60% is, doesn't that have to be divided equally over the term of the contract as well? Or
no,
am I remembering that wrong?
no.
Okay. So they could,
It's
in
just
theory,
60% of,
stuff it all into the first year.
yeah.
Okay. Well, we know some teams will flex their first year muscles on a contract.
Well, no, because there's going to be a limit on how much um, the AAV can differ from year to year, from the highest to the lowest. So, no, they couldn't put it all in year one
Okay. Well, they can
because,
still front end heavy it like they
yeah,
do now, and I'm sure some teams
yeah,
will try to do that. But we have seen it before, especially when the cap was increasing, obviously not to this point, but we hear how some teams are going to have internal caps as opposed to the actual salary cap. So having a contract that is higher hit to the cap than cash owed, some teams are going to like that. So I
yeah,
I'm not the greatest at feeling good about it, but it is what it is. You have to live in the reality when you're trying to build your team that some teams are going to look for those contracts. So having a few on your books, like, if you really think about the Hampus Lindholm contract or the Elias Lindholm contract, if that were front loaded in another year or two, getting that off your books would be much easier. Obviously, the no move clause is going to be a little bit more of an issue, but the actual dollar amount to remove that from your books is significantly easier based on how it's structured.
yeah. I mean, it's changing right before our eyes and changing quickly and changing drastically. Where it ends up, I don't know, but I'm certainly paying a lot of attention to it. Um, I I see where it could come to the point where we might see more offer sheets moving forward, um, but not to the point we just seen Philadelphia do with Carlson.
Yeah, there's some big name RFAs out there that I know I see a lot of discussion on, especially on the higher end ones, because we've got that extra Toronto pick next year, so that means we've got to throw four of them out the window, overpaying for someone that when we don't have enough cap space to do that. But I know
Speaking of
one of the
which,
things. Yeah.
just quickly on that Toronto pick. So um, there seems to be some confusion uh, as to whether it's the 2027 or 2028 pick. And I know the Flyers have asked the league to clarify on it. So, um, as it stands, the belief is if it's inside the top 10, it's Philadelphia's pick. If it's in the top 10, Toronto gets to decide whether it's Boston's pick or Florida's pick. So I asked my friend at the NHLPA, and he said, as far as they're concerned, if it's top 10, it's Boston's pick. If it's outside the top 10, it's Philadelphia's pick, because the pick traded to Philadelphia is top 10 protected. So if it's in the top 10, Philadelphia's automatically moves to 2028. That's the union's position on it. Now, whether
Well,
the
see,
league, I
that
don't
was my
see why the league
interpretation of
would.
it.
Well, it
Because
wasn't
I
mine,
know, well, I know when it was first
and
done, people were like, "Did they just trade the same pick twice?" And I'm like, "Well, technically, yeah, because they literally said if it's pick 11 through 32, it goes to Philly. If it's 10, it stays with us, which means you retain the rights of 1 through 10 to do with that what you want. Now, if it fell in 1 through 10 and it was pick number 7, then at the draft they could trade pick number 7. Just because it fell into the top 10 doesn't mean at the draft table they
yeah,
can't trade that pick again. So they then went out and they made a calculation. We don't want this pick this year at all. So we're going to include what could be a top 10 pick and send that to Boston if that's where it falls. And then to your point, if it falls to Philly, if it's pick 14, then Boston gets our next pick. And that was a risk
yeah.
that
So
Sweeney was willing to take.
yeah, like I said, Philly has asked for clarification on it, so the league will eventually make a decision on it. Speaking on of decisions, it's been what, 2 weeks since the draft, right? 2 weeks today.
Yeah. Yep, because
Didn't
we had
Don
Dev Camp in the
Sweeney,
middle.
when he was asked about Elliot Friedman's report that they had hired Kevin Adams, didn't he say an announcement would be coming within a week?
Yeah, I
It's
wonder what
been
they're still
2 weeks.
deciding on.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're working through some legalities of paperwork. Because, everyone went on vacation a week ago after their dev camps.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Exactly. Right.
also on your sheet, was there anything else on the Carlson offer sheet? I mean, I'm sure we'll touch more on it as we continue to go. But I think it's completely changed the landscape of how this roster is being designed. And I know we want to talk about that a little bit more. But before we dive into that, your next point on your graphic is about sports radio. And I'm really curious as to why. Your question is sports radio dying?
And I think it is. We just saw two major sports radio stations being shut down last week in Canada, but it's happening in the U.S. too. And I I see several reasons why. One, uh, this includes you and me. Everybody's doing a podcast now, and it's so much easier to take a podcast with you when you're doing something that it is to take radio with you.
Mm-hmm.
Second, those that tune in um, are looking for something different. And I swore we would never do it here. And if you look at a lot of podcasts, um, what they do is they talk trade proposals, of which 99.9% never come to fruition. That's what fans want to talk about. Talk radio doesn't talk about that. They talk actual news. Um, and controversy. Fans like I always told controversy sells. In Boston, you've got a great
Absolutely.
radio station that dwells on negativity, bashing players, and they do well, much better than the other ones. So, um, I mean, I'm old enough to remember the days where if something happened, you had to wait for the newspaper to come out or catch the 6 o'clock news to find out something that happened the day before. But information is so accessible nowadays. People don't need radio.
Yeah, you're hearing things before the station has it because you're on Twitter, and you're getting it at the same time. The subject's going to change, and then if you care to hear what they have to say about it, but 9 times out of 10, you have generic talk shows that are trying to talk sports, or if you have a specific sports talk show, they're going to talk about, down here in the States, football's dominant. Whether it's the NFL or NCAA, that's the number one thing. So it will always take precedent. And then it's kind of going to vary from region to region. Baseball season is always going to be up there as well, big revenue generator for the sports world, basketball, and then you've got hockey. So at least in our world, hockey is fourth at best in most areas. So people are finding their podcasts and stuff like that. So, it's definitely affecting it. And then to your point with the controversy, it's that station here in Boston. When you have a show host who's spouting off to trade a Hart Trophy candidate or to pull him off the power play simply because he hasn't scored a goal in a little while on said power play, even though he's one of the best goal scorers in the league, like it's either a bit or he's clearly not knowing what the hell he's talking about. And because the reach is so
he knows controversy sells. That's his job,
which makes it a bit
to draw people in, which is too bad because there's a lot of great hockey personalities out there on radio. But let's face it, by the time it gets to radio, it's old news. Like, okay, let's say Elliot Friedman is scheduled to go on the Fan at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the radio, and the Carlsson offer sheet comes out at 11 o'clock. He's already put it out there on Twitter.
He's already probably done a hit on NHL Network and 5 other stations before then anyway.
Yeah, so like it becomes old news. So the shows are dying for that reason. It's you can't have probably the best insider in hockey right now be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in case something breaks. And when it does, he's demanded by so many stations to go on. He can't be on all of them at once, and it's hurting ratings. But I think the biggest thing is some of these podcasts that are out there, and it's not really the discussion fans want to listen to.
Yeah, and I think in some cases, as you're saying, there's a select few insiders that are in high demand, and once they're spread out, like you hear their hit for whatever reason, and then you move on to the next thing. And if you find a couple niche podcasts out there, then some of them, I know Elliot Friedman, great example, like you said, he's got his own podcast. So are you going to sit there and listen to a 5-minute radio hit where he has to get off the air quick for commercials? Or are you just going to sit there and go, you know what, 32 Thoughts comes out on Friday, they're going to talk about it?
Since we're talking about insiders, let's segue into that for a minute. There's only one insider, and it's Elliot Friedman. Simple as that. Every Sunday for the last couple months, I've been doing a Sunday summary article where I take everything insiders are saying and the amount of contradiction going on, not just amongst themselves, but with each other as well. Like inside at 8 o'clock in the morning, jump on this show and say this, but by 1 o'clock when he's on this show, he's saying something totally different. And it's because I know how many people read those articles. But it's beyond me how people can't see, hey, Insider A is contradicting himself because he's saying this on one show and then he's saying something totally different on another show. So, like, I've been saying it for years. Don't believe the crap that's out there because how many trades or signings went down that were actually broken in advance?
Not very many. Like they all get them at the same time because that's when they're either submitted to
Yeah,
the league or approved by the league. So like you said, there's really only one
exactly.
true insider who breaks things first and is accurate. And even then, sometimes he won't break something first because he's not sure of its accuracy.
Right, right.
It's more important to be
Or he
accurate. I
won't.
mean, yeah, it's more
Nobody
important to be accurate
wants to
because
be accurate. They want to be first.
exactly. And we saw what happened with that with with Nikita Zadorov rumors from last week. And I mean, I they were put to bed for me like right away because when you look at something like that and it doesn't make sense, and then you start to see how things were worded, how things are reported, and by who, there are things that just don't make sense. And you look at and you go, that's just out there for, it's going to get views, and that's what people need. They want clicks, they want views, they want that more important than being right. And yeah, if they can create controversy, then they'll get views on a tweet or something to that effect. And when you look at it and you see the wording that they use, sometimes you're like, well, they're not wrong, but you're trying to insinuate something that will create controversy.
Well, let me say this because there's still people, even in the Bruins media, saying that they've heard that it was Nikita Zadorov. You know who my contact is. He sits in the Edmonton Oilers roundtable when they have these discussions. They are part of the. He is part of the decision makers with the team, and he told me it never got to the point where a player was asked to waive a no trade clause. I will say this that I've heard since then is that Jonas Corposalo had submitted his no trade list. He asked whether he would consider Edmonton, and he said no. Doesn't mean he killed a trade because Edmonton was on his list. He said no. Um, and the Bruins to somebody else in discussions. Never was Corpusalo formally added his no trade clause to Edmonton.
And that also doesn't mean that he would have been the only one who had to waive. Darnell Nurse also had to waive to come to Boston, which didn't seem like it would be a problem. But, what if you're sending out, say, Henry Jokiharju as part of that? He's got limited trade, or no, he doesn't. I mean, it could have been a
It
forward. It could have been Casey
expired.
Middlestat. Yeah, I forgot that his expired this year. But like Casey Middlestat, limited trade protection. If Edmonton's on there and you were doing Corpusalo and Middlestat together somehow, then now you're looking at two potential people on Boston alone who have the ability to quash that deal. So it doesn't really matter. He's now in San Jose anyway. So it is what it is.
But all that Dave Pagnotta said was that there was a deal in place. Somebody uh, killed it by not waiving, and then somebody else had come out and said he heard it was um, Nick Zadorov, and it all ran from there. Actually, it started before there. Let you take it, but and Dave Pagnotta actually responded to somebody who asked, and Pagnotta said, "I never mentioned a name. For all we know, it could have been Darnell Nurse that killed the trade."
Yeah. Yeah. Um But that all comes down to, like you said, it becomes more important to be first than to be right. So with that
Yeah.
being, you're first on a lot of topics when it comes to the Bruins, and I think this is one that you might actually be on another one of those little tangents here. So we'll pay attention to some of those other podcasts and talk shows. You pose a question: has Cooper Simpson surpassed Will Zellers in the Bruins prospect pool? And I do think you're onto something here. What's made you come around to that potential question?
Well, because it's been a hot topic since the camp. I will say this. Had he surpassed him? No. Until Cooper Simpson does it above the USHL, it's a no. He has to prove himself as he continues to progress. Is it a possibility? It's possible that eventually he could get there, but I wouldn't sleep on a guy like Will Moore either,
That
getting
was the
there
other name
eventually.
that was running through my head. Yeah, big
Um,
year for him at BC this year.
yeah, but nobody talks about him because he wasn't on the ice at development camp. Um, I wasn't there. You were there. Um, but I often stress you can't make a judgment on one 3-on-3 scrimmage. Um, that, that player A has surpassed in the prospect pool. Give Simpson the year at North Dakota, playing on the same team as Will Zeller, and you're comparing an apple to an apple then because they have the same teammates, the same team, so on and so forth. But I'm not ready to anoint Simpson as a better prospect than Zellers right now because he hasn't proven it.
No, but I do think, because a lot of people are extremely high on Will Zellers, I do think one of the big questions coming into the season, that trifecta of prospects, Will Moore, Cooper Simpson, and Will Zellers, are three key guys to keep an eye on this year. I think right now a lot of fans have Will Zellers at the top of that list, but I think Cooper Simpson and Will Moore have the opportunity this year to start climbing that list and jump over him. I mean, these are three guys that you could be looking at by the end of the, or even by the middle of the year, as, either, I mean, trade candidates to try and help you get something sooner, um, or just guys that you don't want to get rid of simply because their projection is starting to show.
Well, yeah, it's you have to be patient um, with these prospects and not let's not start judging them too early. And by patient, I don't mean to the point of Fabian Lysell patient, but we know what's at this point. Let's see him if he can improve on that. Uh, Moore didn't have a great offensive year at BC last year, um, but he learned what it takes to be successful at that level. Now let's see if he can implement it this year and take that step. We don't know what he is at this level yet because he's never played it. So, um, I'm not. I I know people rate Zellers highly, but there's a large portion of Bruins fans that have put Cooper in the Hill Zellers,
I
and
think
he
if you're
hasn't
looking
proven
at
anything yet.
potential, I think if you're looking at potential and that grade, then you could make that case. But I mean, like you said, we have to see it at an equal level first. So I'm glad that you mentioned Fabian Lysell, though, and kind of good segue there to the current roster. Um, do you think Don Sweeney is done as we sit right now with about five in a little over a quarter of cap space? We have several NHL defensemen. Um, it to me, the roster screams one more move, but I can also see them coming into camp with nothing else being done.
No, I don't think he's done. I think he's trying. Um, but this may be something that doesn't get done until September, early October, um, where teams see where they are, um, what they're missing. It could be an early season trade, but I don't think the roster today is the roster that is going to be in place in, say, November or December. I think something else is coming. It's just a question of when and whether Sweeney can get it done. But I don't think this roster is set in stone. No. And I know there's conversations going on.
Yeah, I can't. Like I said, it screams to me like there's one more move. What that is, I couldn't even begin to see. I mean, JJ Paterka, that name never was talked about, and all of a sudden we're sending two first
No.
round picks to Utah for him. So like that goes to show that you really do need to examine other teams and what do they have coming down the pipeline, what contracts, especially now, because like you said, we've got to get used to what 18 million truly is on this new cap. And as much as people want to complain about that Elias Lindholm contract, if he can be healthy enough to be your 3C, that cap hit's going to be a 3C cap hit in a year or two at worst. So you're kind of going to be okay there.
Yeah, but yeah, and at that point, 2, 3 years, you've got Laterno there. Uh, maybe Hagen's moves to the middle. We'll have an answer on Zaka. We'll see how Minton's progression is going. And I'm still not counting out Matthew Poitras. I get emails every day asking me if I'm worried about an offer sheet for Poitras. No, I'm not, because uh, I don't expect his deal is going to be worth more than 850,000, which is the new league minimum. Question is it a one-way or a two-way deal? And if somebody throws an $850,000 contract at Poitras, the Bruins will just match. They're not going to give him up for nothing.
Yeah, they're not going to worry about like right now. They're probably trying to figure out structure of the contract, how things, all those details. And I mean, maybe it's not 850, maybe it's $1 million, like two-way, whatever. And so, like you said, if someone offers him one, you just say thanks for doing my job for me. We were going to pay him the money anyway, just a different way. So thanks. And
Yeah.
if they blow you out of the water with a massive offer, which you're talking 6-7 million for a guy who's played 33 40 games in the NHL right now, like no one's coming in with that kind of offer.
No.
Is it 60? Oh yeah, because he played 30 that first year, I think. Anyway,
yeah.
Point being is the sample size just isn't there for someone to throw 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 million at this kid, other than we just want to screw with you. In which case you just say, all right, thanks for the draft pick.
Yeah. He's not the type of player at this point in his career anybody throws an offer sheet. Just, but I think the fact that McAvoy is going to miss the first 6 games with a suspension has got the Bruins hint about moving a defenseman right now. They're worried about 6 games. And yeah, if you don't do well in those 6 games, it's going to cost you later on in the season. Points are hard to make up. So I think they're being a little bit hesitant because of that.
Yeah, I think we can confidently say though their top 4 are locked up. and they are for a little while,
Yeah.
which is a great piece of work simply because right now you're looking at about 25 million for your back end, for your core four on the back end for the foreseeable future in a cap that's just skyrocketing.
Yeah.
And then you've got your goaltender locked in for another 7 years. Tell me that deal doesn't look a lot better now that the cap is actually starting to go up the way we knew it was going to, but we can actually physically see it now.
Yeah, let's see what some of the other goalies start signing for when they become unrestricted free agents. So some of the better goaltenders.
Yeah, that's fair to say. I mean, Pasternak's deal looks like a great piece of work now, even better than before.
Pasternak, 11 million. Carlson, 18 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you get the eight years younger on Carlson, but he's getting walked right to unrestricted free agency on that contract, which I think was brilliant because you also pointed out just before that contract came out, I'm sure if it worked out that way, Philly would have gone over 8 years, but the compensation would have been just as high as if they went over 5.
Well, when you think about it, the value of Carlson's deal,
90 million.
100 million? No, 90 million. Okay. And 90. He's going to be 26 when it expires? No.
Yep. No. 26, 27, somewhere in that range. I don't know his exact birth date.
So let's say 27. So max contracts will be 7 years if you're with the same team. He's got another $100 million deal coming up. Now, let's say he had signed for 8 years. Okay, he wouldn't be unrestricted now until 29. So it wouldn't have another max. So the way he signed the deal is he's got the opportunity to max out on another well over $100 million deal. And he will have earned well over $225 million in his career, whereas if he went max term this year, he wouldn't be. So it was a brilliantly structured by both sides, Philadelphia and Carlson side.
Absolutely. Now, how worried are you about RFAs for next year? We got Hustadinov, Minton, Lorai. This year, we only have Poitras to worry about, but as of right now, those are the big 3 that we have to worry about for next year. I mean, if I'm Sweeney, I'm starting to talk to those guys this year if I see them as part of my team long term.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if they've already had discussions with at least Minton and Hustadinov. Wouldn't surprise me one bit.
I do think that Lorai is one of the names
being shopped.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the names being shopped, because if this year is a good year for him, think about the pay raise he'll be looking at next year.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to predict what these guys are going to be making. We just don't know where the landscape is going. The NHL and NHLPA could come out tomorrow and say, "Look, cap is 104 million. It should be 115 million. So the following year, instead of 113, we're going to go 120 or 125, which will put it more in line where it should be." And it just throws everything out of whack again. The cap is at least 5% should be. Last year, the
Yeah.
players paid an extra 4% to get them to the 50-50.
Yeah, I think that part goes understated exactly how
Yeah.
underinflated this cap is right now, and they only went to 28, 29, but it they both sides can agree to move it between now and then, or you just wait and skyrocket it more in 3 years after this is over. So I know we are getting to that 45-minute to an hour mark. um do you have any other pressing questions or anything that you're seeing a lot of that you want to address before we tap into maybe one more subject here, and then we can head out of here?
Question at me. I'm ready.
Well, I wanted to get your thoughts on what some of these players are valued at on the trade market, simply because we're seeing a lot of names out there from fans and media and that sort of thing. And some of what we're seeing, I look at and I go, absolutely no way that happens. You know, people are valuing Pavel Zacha like he's worth 3 or 4 first round draft picks, even though he's on an expiring contract. Is he worth more than, say, Casey Middlestat? Absolutely. But just what is his trade value out there, and what would Casey Middlestat, so like what are some of these guys worth, in terms of an A level prospect, B level prospect, in your opinion, or at least based on what you're hearing, if anything?
What they're worth is how important he would be to a team he's being traded to. Like, for instance, Pavel Zacha is not worth as much to Chicago as he would be to, let's say, Edmonton or Vegas or a Carolina or a Florida. Teams that are in a win now window as opposed to teams that are rebuilding, he's more valuable to because he would put them over. He could be a player that puts them over the top. A team like Chicago, who is years away, they're like, what's the point? Yeah, okay, we'll make an offer on him if that's what you're asking, but he's not important to us, so you know, we'll give you 2 second-round picks. We're not giving you a first because we know we're going to suck. So value is comes from what he's worth to the other team.
And obviously, like you said, that'll change from team to team, and some other teams are going to be in a position where they need to either save a few bucks, or we spent a while talking about Anaheim. They're going to have to do a little bit of restructure. We're hearing some names like Chris Kreider, Alex Killorn, those names getting thrown out there. But I do wonder if this is an opportunity where you could pounce on a bigger name like a Troy Terry and allow them to kind of completely restructure. Again, that's them needing to relieve themselves of some money the way that they're now having to. But I mean, even if it was like Mikael Granlund, now, I don't know if any of these guys would be good fits for Boston, but you do have a trade history with them. So, I mean, is there anyone on a roster like that needs to either bring money in or send money out where you see as a good trade partner for Boston?
Well, a lot of people are talking about Troy Terry. Um, he'd be a good acquisition, but he just had surgery, so he's going to be out for a few months. Anaheim could simply put him on long-term injury reserve to start the season and work out their cap situation. They've got time to deal with that. So I can't think team where they are desperate to move out cap that you could take advantage of them. Um, like even Vegas has plenty of options, so I I don't think advantage of them. It's
Yeah, both Vegas and Toronto are over the cap
legitimately
right now.
Like I said, Vegas has got options. They've got guys they can move to get cap compliant. They've also got LTIR that they can use.
Yeah.
Toronto just fired everybody in their front office. They've got new analytics people coming in. Got new cap people coming in. Um, I'm sure they're going to find a way. There isn't a problem there. They'll move Morgan Riley. They'll find a taker, but you're not taking advantage of them because um, they want to dump him anyway, and he's the guy I particularly want on my team anyway.
Yeah. I think once that move is done, they'll be cap compliant too, because they'll look at it in terms of getting the money off the books and a fresh start. They're
Yeah.
just looking for the best, like probably 1-for-1 deal they can make. But
But
like you said,
as we've seen with Sweeney, it's going to be something that we never ever expected.
yeah, now it's just a matter of trying to dig deep enough to find what that could be. But as you said, a lot of places will have that fantasy trade talk, and none of it'll end up happening. But it's fun to have those conversations sometimes, but we don't want to build everything around that. So I know we're only at about a 50-minute mark here, but it is the off season, so these ones can be a little shorter. Do you have any final thoughts when it comes to week over week news? Anything people should be looking out for in this organization over the summer that we haven't yet talked about? And anything else that you want to add today?
No, my biggest thing now is I'm waiting to see who replaces Langenbrunner and who replaces Ryan Mougenel in Providence. To me, they're the big key, and I mean they are key. They are really key decisions that they've got to make off ice, especially with Mougenel's replacement. Uh, the Providence roster may not have prospects down there right now because it doesn't, but they've got some coming. Um, and you better damn well have the right coach down there. That's got us to the NHL and not, um, for lack of a better term, shit the bed with them. Because that's what we've been used to for years down in Providence.
Yeah, and you've got some young talent down there. Ivan, Riley Duran, Lucas Reichel, Don Zlotchemelis will be down there to start the season. Right now Frederick Brunet would be considered in Providence, Loke Johansson. So like there's plenty of young talent down there that you're still trying to see if you can bring that to the NHL level and tap into them. So other than that though, I want to thank everybody for jumping in and watching, and yeah, we'll see you guys next time here on Dom.Hockey the Podcast. Welcome to the Dom.Hockey Podcast, proudly presented by Welcome to the Dom.Hockey Podcast, proudly presented by Bench Rates. Created by a former hockey player, Bench Rates uses a proprietary algorithm to assign a true monetary value to a player's on-ice contributions and lets you compare that value directly to his cap hit. Bench Rates evaluates professional players across leagues worldwide, including the NHL and AHL. Learn more at benchrates.com. Also presented by McKeen's Hockey. McKeen's produces the premier NHL draft guide featuring more than 200 player reports and comprehensive rankings. They also deliver in-depth prospect coverage through their annual team-by-team rankings and their trusted hockey pool yearbook. Visit mckeens.com and subscribe for just $16.50